It was actually Anthony who approached me. We've been friends for a very long time, and we've done a couple of projects together beforehand, and I always loved working with him. I knew the piece, I knew some of the music, not all of it, but I knew the piece, and I was very attracted to the whole idea of the timeline being opposed, the timeline of the two characters being opposed to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this concept really fascinates me, and I like it. I love the music.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I'm a fan of Jason Robert Brown, the writer. He's an incredible composer. He writes really complex music, beautiful lyric. So as a performer, it's a wonderful challenge to perform his work really, really well. That's the first thing. The second thing, it's only two characters, so it's a massive challenge for both Jamie and Kathy in this performance. They're on stage so often. It's really demanding, and I think that's really exciting to have so much music just for two characters to fill an entire show.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is, I think you're often telling your own story, so there's a lot of monologuing and a lot of solo performing and solo singing, which is also hard as an actor. You don't always have someone to perform with or against.
Mm-hmm.
So the challenge of turning that entire story, in my case, forwards,
mm-hmm.
and in Kathy's case, backwards,
Mm-hmm.
For those entire 2.5 hours is really exciting as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge, it's a meaty piece to get yourself into. So I think the chance to do something like that with someone who I really respect and love as a friend and as a performer is going to be just a gift.
For Kathy and me, I can say that's definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I think I know exactly about the struggles and self-doubts you automatically have in when you choose this kind of career, with all the
Competition.
with all the competition you have in this field.
Mm-hmm.
Also with being constantly confronted with your own self, right? Because it's
Mhm.
always a personal matter. If you get turned down for a job, it's hard to learn to not take it personally. It
Mhm.
takes you a while to build that self-esteem. And
He is a young-ish, not as young as Kathy, aspiring writer, and he's quite a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. He loves what he does. He doesn't really mind about conforming. He's not really looking for validation. He's quite self-assured, but he's a bit of a geek, and he's a bit undiscovered. And what happens in the show is one of his pieces of writing gets picked up by a publisher, and they want to publish the book, and suddenly he relatively overnight becomes quite popular in his field. And watching him come to terms with that is fascinating. He goes from being very, I think, not meek and mild, but very quite a low-key guy, just an everyday guy, and suddenly he's faced with all this attention, and how he learns to accept that and come to terms with that is quite interesting. So he starts to become a little bit cocky, a little bit self-assured, and that bounces off Kathy's insecurities, getting rejected from audition after audition, for example, or having to go on tour and be the actor's life, being on tour for 3 months and being away from him. So this guy who was never really getting much attention in life because he's an average guy with a good talent for writing, suddenly becomes the center of attention. And he has a line in a song where he talks about himself as the grand fromage, the big cheese. And that attention, suddenly, he doesn't cope with it very well. He makes some bad decisions in his personal life, decisions that really negatively also affect the relationship. But he starts to realize that also he can only look after himself. And so the dynamic of their relationship is brought to life so much by the fact that Kathy's going through a lot of self-searching, and the fact that he's facing a lot of self-discovery through becoming quite well-known, where she's struggling with her career. And that brings out the best and the worst in them, and it oftentimes to the detriment of their relationship. So he's a fascinating character, but he's got such a huge arc over the entire show that as an actor as well, it's so meaty. It's such a wonderful role to try and get into. To number one, as Sarah said, I definitely find things in him that I identify with. There are things that he would do, that he does, that I personally find difficult to accept, but I have to do them. So such an incredible, interesting arc, really fascinating character.